On May the 9th, 1950, at 6 p.m., 75 years and 1 month ago today, the French Foreign Minister Robert Schuman gave a 3-minute speech in which he laid the foundation for the European house, where today 450 million Europeans live together in peace. In my book, this was the defining moment of post-war Europe, for it launched the European movement for peace and unity, which has led to today's European Union. The Schuman Declaration of May the 9th embodied the values and virtues of peace, brotherhood, equality, freedom, collaboration, interdependence, mutual accountability, and seeking the common good of all. And these values and virtues are under pressure today from nationalism and populism within and without Europe. And these are the values we must urgently embrace again in these turbulent times. The success of the European integration, which began with the Schuman Declaration, was a major factor in the implosion of communism 40 years later. It's also indirectly set the stage for Ukraine's struggle to free itself from the grip of an imperialist Russia and become part of the European family. We're talking today with Ilya Ponomarev, who is deeply engaged in this struggle for Ukraine, not against Russia, but against the current regime in Russia. And as you will hear, Ilya was a member of the Russian Duma for about a decade, from 2007 to 2016, which of course included the time when Putin invaded the Crimea. Ilya was the only member of the Duma who voted against that annexation, and he was later impeached for delinquent service in 2016 from the Duma. He had to leave the country. There was a major billboard right in the center of Moscow declaring him to be a national traitor. And since then, he's been living in exile in Ukraine and US. He authored a book we'll talk about called Does Putin Have to Die? And he has survived 6 attempts on his life. And so, Ilya, we want to welcome you to the studio. We're very privileged to have you with us today. And we see in your background there, you have the Congress of People's Deputies. Now, what is that?
First of all, good evening, and thanks for having me, and thanks for all our viewers to come to see us. Congress of People's Deputies is the shadow Russian parliament. Actually, you absolutely correctly delivered my bio. I was for almost 10 years member of Russian parliament, and at the end of the day, they firstly banned me from coming to Russia, and then they impeached me for not attending the sessions. So that's like usual thing, what's happening in Putin's Russia, but in this case they even had to pass a special law, which is even named Ponomarev's law in Russia, to be able to do this, and it was applied only once. And now being in the West, we decided that there are many other members of Russian parliament who are standing against the war, against the oppression, and we decided to unite and start this shadow parliament, because one of the biggest problem of Russian opposition is that it was never actually elected. So there is no legitimacy. Here we have now approximately 130 former MPs, and in this number we are basically representing 1/4 of the current State Duma, slightly even slightly more, and more or less the same in terms of votes, how the Duma usually gets at the elections. So we compete for the legitimacy, but this parliament is not engaged in the actual fighting. This parliament is actually engaged in plotting the new Russia, passing the new constitution, the new basic set of laws. So architecting the future.
Okay, we want to come back to the future a little bit later on. You were in the Duma when the invasion took place, and you also predicted at that time that the Russian invasion would be followed up with an attempt to take over the whole of Ukraine. How did you foresee that?
Well, first of all, I want to say that to me, at that time, it was pretty obvious. because Ukrainians would have to fight back at the end of the day, and it was clear. And also was clear that Ukraine would turn to get help from NATO, from European Union, from the United States, from other countries, and that was exactly what Mr. Putin was saying. Why we are doing this annexation of Crimea is to prevent NATO from expanding eastwards, and it was clear that it was to achieve the opposite objective. But at the same time, I would confess that I did not expect in February 2022 that Putin would actually advance, because it was not less obvious to me that he has not enough forces to occupy Ukraine, and it would end up in a big disaster. And I was thinking that his intel is good enough to tell him that it would end well. It would not end well, and that he needs to be cautious. But it turned out otherwise, and now we are already in the fourth year of this horrible bloodshed, with the highest number of casualties on both sides since World War II.
Now, at the time, you said that if there was such an invasion, you would go and fight on the side of Ukraine. Did you?
Yeah, I did. That's exactly what I did at the very first day of the invasion. I got myself enlisted in the territorial defense of Ukraine. Was defending Kiev with a machine gun. I was a machine gun operator. It was not for a very long time, because then the Ukrainian government military command, they said that I would probably better need to focus on organizing Russian resistance, so that there would be people from Russia coming and joining Ukrainian military. And right now, the largest international group inside inside Ukrainian military are Russians, which I'm very proud of this achievement. And obviously, we have numerous Russians at the home front. So we assumed, I would say, de Gaulle's model of France Liberté. And that's what we are trying to recreate with Russians. Obviously, a lot of pushback, mainly from Russian liberal opposition, who is trying to say that we are pacifist and we are, against all violence. Europeans also, they don't want Russians to be engaged in this, because they are afraid of Putin being replaced. They don't want Ukraine to lose, but they don't want Russia to be defeated either. And that's for us the biggest problem, but what can we do? We have to deal with what we got.
When you talked about the Russians on the home front, you're talking about subversive activities. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. You probably hear about all these attacks that are happening on Russian military bases, on the Russian refineries, on railroads. Obviously, they've been done in cooperation with Ukrainians, but you need to have people on the ground who are actually doing this. And yeah, that's exactly what Russian resistance is doing.
And the latest, the spiderweb attack, which was very successful over long distances, that seemed to have been a Ukrainian-launched activity, or was there a lot of Russian involvement as well?
Well, there was a little bit of Russian involvement, but yes, that was predominantly Ukrainian. It was organized by people who moved to Russia from Ukraine, but they are ethnically Ukrainians. But many others, they got way larger involvement of Russians.
Tell me, Ilya, about your own motivation. What's really motivating you? You were a member of the Communist Party, and is that still your conviction?
Oh, well, I am definitely left-wing. And that's what I'm telling all the time. What drives me is fighting against injustice and fight for people's and nations' self-determination. I really believe in grassroots democracy. I believe in direct democracy. I believe in equal opportunities for everyone. And to me, this is the basic set of left-wing views, and I'm trying to promote them as much as possible. What's happening right now in Ukraine, to me, is obviously an abuse by the larger nation of a smaller one, and it's an act of imperialism, and imperialism is definitely my enemy number one.
And would you say there's a spiritual dimension to your convictions?
Definitely, yes, because the vision that I was trying to promote and is trying to promote is a broader Northern Union of nations, the union which is based on Christian principles, on biblical principles, on principles of Renaissance. And that's why I do believe that countries like Russia and European Union, and obviously including Ukraine and the United States, they should live as one community, maybe not as one country, but definitely as one community, because I don't think that we have much to argue about. But to achieve this, we definitely need to reset the existing Russian statehood. And that's what we are doing in the Congress of People's Deputies on our quarterly sessions.
And would you see this as an extension of Schuman's original vision?
Yes, that's an inspiring example for us. We are studying this closely, and you see in Russia, the so-called liberal opposition is usually trying to reject Christianity and especially reject Orthodoxy. They say that it's all reactionary, that that's conservative, that actually prevents country from developing. And my personal opinion is right the opposite. But because they are organizing this push, especially in the media, so they are dividing the society a lot. And what I am personally working on right now is I want to organize a group of people, of visionaries, who actually can propose such a vision for Russia. Right now, there are a lot of people, like true believers and people who were inside the church, which are now expelled from the country. Because right now we have a totally ungodly man as the leader of Russian Orthodox Church, and Russian Orthodox Church right now is just another tool of oppression and imperialism. So we want to make such a session maybe in Europe and start in this group of intellectuals to develop such vision as it was done earlier by Robert Schuman.
Now, I want you to unpack that a bit further, but firstly, I have heard you mention that you yourself got baptized at the with the opposition of your parents. How did that come about?
I wouldn't use the word opposition of my parents. It came as a surprise to my parents because they're atheists and they were engineers. So for them it was not a very natural thing to do. But yes, it was I believe 1987 or 1988. So when things were wakening up in the former Soviet Union, it was still not very safe to do this. But well, for me, it was such a push, such an interest to come and to find a priest who is a true believer, because not everybody among Russian priests are true believers. Many people were just installed by KGB in the church. But I did find one, and I was truly lucky in this, and that's why what's happening right now in the church for me is an absolutely awful thing.
Well, tell us a bit more about the state of the Russian church. How do you view that?
It became just as a department of the state. So it's just another state corporation. Patriarch Kirill, the leader of the church, he made his career in 1990s with alcohol and tobacco trade. And that was sponsored by the state. And one of my very good acquaintance was working in the president's staff at the moment of elections of a new patriarch when the previous one, Alexei, passed away. And by the way, he was a very nice guy. No, but when he passed away, it was a competition between the two. And I remember how people from president's administration were saying, we need to do everything that Kirill wins and pay money for particular bishops to vote for Kirill, because the other one, Clement, was a true believer, and we cannot afford the true believer being at the helm of the church. And that's what's actually happening right now. He is oppressing the clergy for their appointments as priests, not promoting normal priests to become bishops, and vice versa. He is promoting very loyal people to him for all the positions inside the church. And obviously, he is supporting the war. He facilitated a split between Russian and Ukrainian church, so it's all very awful.
Very often in the West, there are various channels who are promoting this vision of Putin as being a champion of traditional Christian values. I know you've got comments to make on that.
Definitely. Putin never went to church before year 2000, before he became president. And I know the person. He is one of former Russian oligarchs who then got at odds with Putin. But nevertheless, it was him who convinced Putin then that regularly going to church with cameras and with candles, it would promote his image with the ordinary Russians. And Putin, who was very sensible to all the PR tricks, he recognized the importance of this advice, and he started going to church. And that's why he paid so much attention to make church his instrument. He is pouring a lot of money into it from the state coffers and buying their loyalty. One of his first projects was reuniting Russian Orthodox Church, official Russian Orthodox Church, with Russian Orthodox Church in exile in the Western countries, and now many of its priests are just agents of influence of Kremlin in the West. Not everybody, obviously, but unfortunately, a significant number of them. And again, the church should have been the preventer from being engaged in new military campaigns. And again, the previous patriarch Alexei he was trying to calm down emotions every time in the 90s when Yeltsin was doing this and that bad thing. Kirill is totally is just supporting what Mr. Putin is saying. So he is just another soldier of his, and that compromises church, that turns people away from God, that destroys the faith in Russia, which is awful.
Well, over the weekend, there were reports that President Putin was putting pressure on the Vatican to do much more to promote freedom of religion in Ukraine. Now, this it's a little bit like the way he condemned the Ukrainian attacks on his bomber forces as being a terrorist attack. These were legitimate military targets, of course. And so he responds with his own terrorist attack against civilian targets. And so we see this double speak, this inversion of language when he's actually asking the Vatican to intervene for freedom of religion. What is he talking about, this freedom of religion?
Yeah, obviously it's a hypocrisy what Putin is doing, and this hypocrisy is very easy to explain with just one number. In Russia, people who are regularly visiting church is 5% of the population. In Ukraine, it's 50. So it's 10 times difference. And in the Russian Orthodox Church, half of people, and so half of revenues, actually even more, slightly more than half of revenues, were coming from Ukraine. And that's why it's once again it's a fight for money originally, which then evolved in the fight for influence. And Putin is a fantastic manipulator. He is very professional in this. His principle of his politics is what some clever Western observers called whataboutism. So every time when he is doing something bad, he asks, "And what about you? We don't have a democracy. Okay, Americans, and what about you? Okay, we maybe don't have a full religion freedom. And what about you?" And he's trying to speculate about the differences, and there is no ideal things in the world. So everybody has problems. Everybody has certain caveats and dark spots. So he is always trying to promote them, to use his propaganda tools, to use his loyal diplomats to raise the awareness and hide his own problems. So, as I said, the church in Russia is totally enslaved. There is no freedom there at all. Is just a part of the state mechanism. But because it's being a part of the state mechanism, everything is in order. There is one Christian church, there is one Muslim command. So obviously there is no church there, but there is a centralized command, and the Jewish community is also under control with one person who is in charge. So that's why everybody is calm as at the cemetery. In Ukraine, you have plenty of particular congregations, plenty of different churches, plenty of influential press. There is a lot of discussion. Obviously, right now, there is a patriotic push that we don't want Russian Orthodox Church anymore. We want Ukrainian Orthodox Church, but it's a spin-off. And so it's the same faith, and there is no oppression. It's just a natural reaction to what Russia is doing.
Now, this issue of the place of the Russian Orthodox Church in the total Orthodox world is actually one of the what Putin has said is the cause of the war. I've heard you talk about 3 different causes of the war. Would you elaborate that and say, now, why is this such a sensitive thing to Putin if he's really not a true believer?
Well, look, Putin is trying to find the foundation for what he is doing, to find the justification. And why the issue of Ukraine is so sensitive to him. It's, maybe you mentioned when he is speaking to Western journalists, he started to speak not even about the Middle Ages, but of the events of like 2,000 years ago. Because what is true is that the foundation of our civilization is in Kiev. It's the Kiev who could be the metropolis. It was destroyed by Mongol Tatars back in the ages, while Moscow and northern cities have survived, and that's why the statehood went northwards. But without Kiev, it's all hanging in the air. The church capital was in Kiev. People were baptized there. The founders of the state are there. The founders of the legal system are there. All the traditions are there, and the whole word Rus is from Ukraine. That's Ukraine originally, which was Rus. That's why everything that Putin does is kind of hanging in the air without the foundation, and that's what triggers him a lot. And also, being a KGB officer, he is living in the world of conspiracy theories. So he once read Zbigniew Brzezinski's book, The Great Chess Game, where it's written that the key to restoring the Great Russia is the union between Russia and Ukraine, and in Putin's mind is okay. So then it means that the Western shadow government wants us to be separate. That's why we need to fight for it. And he's a megalomaniac, and that's why this whole thing is happening. And church here is the key because it's the civilizational foundation. So to privatize the religion, to privatize orthodoxy, that gives him a lot of leverage because again, the Ukrainians are religious.
Now, recently, you interviewed a filmmaker of a documentary called A Faith Under Siege, which is talking about what is happening to the churches, what is Putin doing to the churches in the occupied territory of Ukraine. It doesn't really sound much like religious freedom. Let's have a look at this short trailer that anybody can find if you just Google A Faith Under Siege and you go to YouTube. This is what you get.
A police officer for 15 years, been on Special Forces Green Beret. I never met fear until I came to Ukraine.
Many evangelical churches absolutely destroyed.
The devil knew exactly how to attack.
Once I came to Ukraine and saw what's going on here, this is good versus evil.
Russian forces are closing churches and persecuting Christians.
All across Russian-occupied Ukraine, soldiers are shutting down places of worship.
Vladimir Putin not only wants to control Ukrainian territory, he also intends to silence the church and take away religious freedom.
The soldiers came to church, they stopped worship service, they arrested me, they searched my home.
Вони почали перевіряти документи у кожної людини. Вони обливали чоловіка водою, били шокером.
They destroyed many hundreds church.
Євангельські, особливо церкви.
If people knew about what was really happening, that Russia is torturing and murdering Ukrainian Christians for their faith,
It is a war crime.
Why does Russia hate evangelical Christians?
They're afraid. Our churches never want to be under government, under communistic party, under KGB, under dictatorship regime. Russia persecute evangelicals because we have just one leader, it's Jesus Christ.
Wow. An American who is far removed from the war may not think that matters who wins or loses in Ukraine. But we see evil happening, and we don't want that evil to triumph.
America's role, the Christian role in this struggle, is so critical.
We come to minister to them, to see them, to listen to them.
I'm not here on behalf of the United States government. I'm just a faithful servant of Jesus Christ coming to support you and be alongside of you.
The faith of the people of Ukraine is absolutely amazing.
Да, церква продовжується.
They're rebuilding their cities, they're rebuilding their lives and their churches.
І коли навіть ти щось будуєш, ти не знаєш, чи завтра воно буде знищено вже. Це будівництво дало людям віру.
We have a duty to these folks that are on the front lines defending religious freedom.
This is an audio Bible? You come get one too. The Bible says that what's right and wrong is written on your heart. And so if you know that there's something you can do to affect change, save lives, then just do it. I've been a United States Marine.
Okay.
It is a fantastic movie. I highly encourage all our viewers to see it. It's available on YouTube. And indeed, we had recently a discussion around it in Washington, D.C., in our Free Peoples of Russia House with the producers of this movie, among which, by the way, which is very interesting, is a lady whose name is Sarah Makin. And under first Trump's term, she was special advisor to Donald Trump on religious freedom worldwide. part of National Security Council. So she was the top person in the United States to supervise religious freedom. And she sadly said that, unfortunately, under this administration, there is no such position. And it's very sad that this issue became hostage of interpartisan struggles inside the United States. So now MAGA people, a lot of MAGA people, they lean towards Putin, and one of the reasons why they say is because Putin is pro-religion and Ukrainians are not, which is totally a lie.
What is your understanding as to what is the hold that Putin has over Trump? It's a puzzle to many of us.
I don't think that he has much. It's more like his image of an alpha male, of a person with power and money, and this is something that Trump respects. He just takes Putin as its peer. But I don't think that Trump sees Putin as a friend. I don't think so. I think that they made a conscious decision that to negotiate some sort of a peace deal, they need to appease Putin and pat him on the shoulder and say, you're a great guy, you know, and we're friends and stuff. But having a lot of friends around Trump and knowing Trump, myself personally, I don't believe that they are friends. But unfortunately, they're cynical. They're cynical. They're very egocentrical, and this policy is not value-based, but so to say, pragmatic. But you know, you would rather say cynical than pragmatic.
Now, that comment you made about Sarah Mankin, who was the head of the Freedom of Religion Department under the first Trump administration, saying that this administration does not hold to that value. I think that would be news to a lot of American Christians who think that Trump is God's man for the hour, and this is the same profile, of course, that Putin has, a champion of the faith. Trump coming in using that terminology. We see it with Orban. We see it with Nigel Farage in England, using traditional Judaic-Christian values as a legitimacy. And so let's talk a little bit about the future by going back to your book from 2022. Does Putin have to die? What are you saying through this book? And after 3 more years of Putin, is this your argument in the book? Is that still valid?
It is. Unfortunately, it is, because the problem is still there. And my main argument is very simple: that if you want peace, you need not just Putin personally to be removed from the office. You need to destroy Putinism as the political order. And that's what many people do not recognize, because many Western politicians, they just say, okay, so we support Ukraine. We make sure that Ukraine does not lose. And this is our victory. And that's the path for peace. No, it is not. And as much as I was saying in 2014, that the large-scale war would definitely happen, I would once again say that even if it would be a ceasefire in Ukraine, then Poland and Baltic states would be next. Putin cannot live in the state of peace anymore. He lost his popularity inside Russia. It's being sustained only with patriotic and I would say false patriotic emotions that he is trying to pump as a drug in the veins of Russian society. No war, no popularity, and the regime would fall, and he would never allow this to happen, and he will continue fighting no matter what.
So what is your hope for Russia's future?
No, obviously, I love my country, and I think that Russia is absolutely normal European state and should be such. And we are people who live on the same values as you are, and this is the values of the Bible. That's the ethical platform of the society. It's not Confucian of Chinese. It's not Muslim. It's a set of Christian values. It's just that the politicians need to recognize it and build the statehood based on them, without trying to invent something new.
Well, how does change happen?
That's the hardest question, obviously. My answer is that, first of all, we definitely need to fight for this. It would not happen by itself, as many people hope to, and that's why I'm doing my best to bring volunteers to Ukraine and to inspire Russians to stand up and say their word. But we definitely are trying to be engaged with the West, because to change this perception that Ukraine shouldn't lose to the perception that it's Kremlin who should lose, it's Putin who should lose, that they need to be defeated. It's actually a very challenging, turns out to be a very challenging thing for many. People are just simply afraid, and they don't want to touch it, and they want to outsource this work to Ukraine. And that's very sad, and that's what I'm trying to change.
Now, you were one of the initiators of the People's Congress. What's your current role?
I'm the same. I recently was elected chairman. We originally started as just a platform, but recently I was elected chairman. But it really doesn't matter, because it's a parliament, So, okay, I'm the speaker of this parliament, but we want to build a society without these artificial leaders, and our Russia of the future is Russia without presidency, for example.
And how often do you come together, and what can you achieve through talking?
We are coming together usually once a quarter. Actually, it was this year when it got delayed a little bit because of outside political events, changes in the US, there were changes in Poland, which is our usual gathering location. Unfortunately, we cannot gather neither in Russia nor in Ukraine for obvious reasons, but Poland is as close as you can get. And what we are doing is we are passing the legislation. We are doing what deputies are supposed to do. We are right now being represented with all the different parties which ever been in Russian parliament. So even United Russia, even Putin's party is being represented there, because there are normal people there as well, obviously. And now half of the Russian regions are also being represented in this body. And we are very actively working, interacting with national liberation movements in Russia, because the oppressed nations, we believe, are our key allies.
And where do you come together?
Usually it is Warsaw.
Mm-hmm. But you yourself, you're oscillating between, I take it, Kyiv, Warsaw, Washington.
Yeah, my personal base mainly is obviously Ukraine. That's where I work with these volunteers. But I'm oscillating, yes, and I spent, especially recently, I spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. because I'm also engaged in exporting new defense technologies from Ukraine to the Western countries, because I think that the best way to prevent the war is to be ready and to show to Mr. Putin our combined strength. And in Ukraine, we paid with a lot of lives to develop these new approaches, which actually can deter enemy and doing this quite effectively.
Now, tell me about the what you understand to be the mood in Russia. How widely understood is it that we're getting close to the million mark of soldiers that have been disabled or killed, Russian soldiers? How is that affecting things in Russia? And do you see a potential pullback coming soon, along with the economic difficulties going on in Russia?
You know, as horrible as it may sound, it does not affect nothing in Russia at the moment. Because it's actually, again, very cynically, it's actually contributing to the Russia's economic growth at the moment. Because what's happening is that Putin is recruiting volunteers, so obviously it's semi-volunteer, but nevertheless volunteers from the most distressed areas of the country, the most poor families, which are usually large. So basically, they are sacrificing one of the members of the family for the well-being of others. And again, it's a horrible thing that speaks to how depraved and degraded Russians have become during Putin's era. Some benefited a lot, and you know, the average temperature in this hospital is pretty high. Because the wealthiest circles of the society, they receive a lot of pay from Putin, and that's why they are being so loyal to him. But the lower circles, they are extremely poor, and the salaries that they are getting as soldiers are usually 10 times more than they are getting in their civilian lives. And if the person, God forbid, dies, the compensation that they are getting allows them to buy a very nice apartment in a good place in the large city. And this is the kind of money that they have never seen in their whole life. Now, this money actually coming on the consumer market, and that's why I said it's driving up the economic growth. But because of this, people do not rebel. So people from the wealthier circles, they say, okay, so we are not being drafted. You know, it's those guys who voluntarily sign the contracts. You know, and these poor guys, they say, okay, so if somebody in our family perished, if we rebel, we will not receive the money. So we better, you know, move on and start building our new life with the newly acquired capital that we have received, and that's why both sides, they keep silent.
I see there's been reports that Patriarch Kirill has now declared that any soldiers who are killed in the war will immediately go to heaven, have all their sins forgiven. Very much the same argument that's been used on Muslim battlefields between Iran and Iraq in the past, that they go to you know, paradise, etc. It's a very unfortunately cynical approach.
It's just, again, that discredits church. Yeah, because Kirill indeed is saying this. They have built recently a horrible church next to Moscow, which is painted in green and looks like a big shell. So it's as far from Christ's ideas as it is possible. And you know, interesting thing is that by contrary, I, with several friends of mine, we have a lot of good friends in Northern Caucasus, in the Muslim regions. We managed to inspire their whole rebellion, which is based on the faith, which were driven by local mullahs and local Sufis, and as the result, they called people to come back from the front lines, and several thousand people actually came back, and they actually local people, they took arms and they stopped mobilization in the region. So as the result, in Dagestan or in Chechnya and Northern Caucasus, there was no mobilization as it was in other parts of the country. And that has been done because we appealed to their values and to their beliefs. And in the Christian side, what is happening is the other way around. As Kirill is saying, oh, it's holy war. Which holy war, with our brothers Ukrainians? Like, it's disaster.
Yes, I think the church you're describing it, you say it's green, that's a military green, a khaki green, with icons that depict the glorious Soviet victories.
And with the hammer and sickle at the top of the church.
Oh yeah, it was really
yeah, it's really, it's not a joke, a large one.
Okay.
Star and hammer and sickle, because it's a symbol of Russian army.
Yes, and the church is dedicated to the resurrection of Jesus Christ and the glorious victories of the Russian army. So. Now, you have a friend, Sergei, who was a Russian Orthodox priest in Russia, but he was defrocked by Kirill. Tell us about why that was, why he was defrocked.
It's actually a process which is happening regularly to many of the Russian priests at the moment. Not again, probably it's hard to say. Alas, not so many. But nevertheless, not so many. But there are priests who are speaking against the war. Kirill mandated all Russian priests to pray for this war and to call people who are attending churches to join the military. There are some priests which refused. And they are being removed one by one, and some of them even being prosecuted. So we have several which were sent to jail for their beliefs, but most commonly they are just being expelled from the country, forced to emigrate. And we have such people in Europe, and very well-known theologians and just very well-known priests. Some of them are turning to Constantinople Patriarchate to continue their service. Some people just become scholars, theologians, but this process is ongoing. It's not stopping.
Yes, and in the case of your friend Sergei, it was he refused to read the prayer for the victory of the Russian troops that Kirill had made part of the official liturgy, and he wanted to pray a prayer for peace. Is that correct?
For peace. That's absolutely correct. Yes, and that's what I'm saying. It's happening here and there and everywhere. Again, as you understand, there are thousands of priests in the Russian Orthodox Church. That happen to several dozen. So to me, is unfortunately not so many. And again, I am drawing a lot of parallels with what was happening in the church during World War II in Germany. And in general, I think that the situation in Russian society resembles so much what was going in World War II in Germany. And I think that the wakening up would be as painful as it was that time. But hopefully, we can steer it in the same direction with the same outcome and learning from mistakes.
Now, suppose this week Putin had a heart attack and died. Are there not legions of Putin clones who would just simply take over and continue? Would that be a solution?
The key thing here is plural. That there are many of those, and they would fight with each other. And there is nobody who is strong enough to claim all the power for himself, because Putin does not tolerate any of the competition, any strong people around him. He needs just powerless, willless bureaucrats. And that actually gives us a lot of hope. There are people, there's a general crowd, general ordinary Russians. They are very unhappy with what's going on. It's just that they feel their personal impotence. They don't feel that they can change something. They don't feel that they have a say. In the situation when there is no Putin, it's a window of opportunity, because many people from actually above, they would call for different groups of people to try to find their support, and so people would actually get this say, and that's definitely an opportunity for everyone.
Now, you've been targeted personally by Putin's people to take you out, and in fact last August they were very close to that. Tell us about that.
No, last August was most unusual, because my house was targeted by 4 drones, one of which almost got in our bedroom. So we were wounded. Me and my wife. I think that my son was okay, but nevertheless, and just one of the series in attacks, because they are trying to get me one way or another, not very professionally, but okay, we are at war, so I think that everybody who is fighting needs to be ready that the enemy would shoot back.
And this is in Kiev, your house in Kiev.
Yeah,
in Kiev.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, you would have a lot of reason to be bitter against Russia, but it's not Russia that you're bitter against. You have you're holding on to a picture of a future Russia. Can you describe that?
No, exactly. For me, inspiration comes from many German anti-fascists who were fighting against Hitler, but it didn't stop them from being German patriots. I definitely is a patriot, and I want my country to prosper. I think that now all Russians, they unwillingly share the responsibility for this war, but not everybody shares the guilt. Many people had absolutely no say in what was going on. And despite that, this responsibility would fall on everybody's shoulders, again, as it happened in Germany. But we actually need to provide people with this foundation for building the new country and the new society, and that's our duty. That's what societal leaders are doing.
Now, last week, as Chancellor Merz from Germany met with President Putin, President Trump. Trump, yeah, that Trump referred to the D-Day landings and said this was a terrible moment for you. And the response from Chancellor Merz was to say, no, that my country was being liberated by the anti-Nazi forces. And this understanding still seems to be not fully appreciated in the West. There were many Germans, and today, of course, the Germans had such a change of mind. There was a real process of repentance, forgiveness, and reconciliation that took place. How can that happen between Ukraine and Russia?
In the very same fashion. It's just that Russians need to be sincere and understand the crime that was committed and ask for forgiveness. And it would not come immediately, but it would definitely arrive. We are so close. There are so many common friends, common relatives. The families are being interlaced between the two countries. We have one faith, and it's a common history. So despite that two countries are different, we have so much in common. That's why I am 100% certain that the relationship at the end of the day would be restored. And I am My favorite example here is the example between the US and Great Britain. I remember when I first time came in Boston, and I was given the guided tour around the city, and just a regular one, with many people. The guide was saying, "Oh, these British bastards were killing us here. They were attacking us here, and here we have killed 3 British swine." And something like this, and that's what he was telling everybody, but that did not prevent at the end of the day United States and Great Britain to become the best allies and fight together and share the common values. And I think that the future between Russia and Ukraine will be something like this.
One last question, Ilya. What would you say to us Westerners? What can we do?
Just stop being afraid. This is the war, unfortunately, which is coming to our homes, and we better fight it now to preserve peace for our families and save a lot of lives. Don't hope that just Ukrainians would protect everyone. It's the peace is the joint effort. And the key to peace is removing Putin and dismantling Putinism. That's the only way how peace can be preserved and brought to the lands of Europe. And if we join together, not just in prayers but in actions, but in prayers nevertheless, which is very, very important, because that's about values, that we recognize that we have the same values, I think that we will definitely prevail.
Thank you, Ilya. This has been very insightful and sobering, but at the same time encouraging. We wish you God's blessing and God's protection and favor in all that you are attempting to do to uphold a just peace and to bring righteousness back into Russia. Thank you for sharing your vision, your hopeful vision for a Russia of true shalom. We talk about Ruski Mir, which is Russian peace, but may this be a true biblical shalom that Russia had finally come to. I mean, it's had the czars and the communists, and now this. We pray that there would be that the Russian people would become as liberated as the Ukrainians. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Thanks for this talk.